get strengthened by sharing their experience. They're also there for one another because a lot of people do experience this. It's a group of people and they've all been through the same crazy stuff. But it is wild to hear us come back with a tight throat. So she said, hers was completely straight. And now it's like, straight. So she said, at first I hated it, now I'm having fun with it. My mother used to go like every 6 weeks. She's like, nice and teach me, say, what are you going for? I said, Cindy, you got a permit. Right here by the right across the street.
It's 6 o'clock. We'll call to order the regular city council meeting for Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. And I see Pastor Steve is with us.
Well, I never take for granted this opportunity to just open these meetings in prayer. Thank you for the privilege and the honor of being able to do this. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we come before you, and our hearts are thankful that we have the privilege of serving this great city. Lord, we get to do this, and I pray, Lord, that you would give the council great wisdom and guidance as they deliberate today. And Lord, give us all great patience and help us to lean in and to listen to what is discussed, knowing that great work has preceded anything that is presented before us as the public. And so, Lord, I pray for your blessing throughout this meeting in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Page roll call.
Rothschild.
Here.
Kennett.
Here.
Swanson.
Here.
Barnhart. Roothouse. James.
Here.
Samowski. Arnold.
Here. Okay. We do have a quorum. There's Zach. Right on cue. Chamber of Commerce report.
Right on time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I could use a nap, by the way. Jeez. All right. Good evening. Here's your your city council report from the Geneseo Chamber for September 2025. I have one new member to report. That's the I-80 Cafe located in Kelowna, but in the Geneseo School District. This is an expansion of one of our small businesses, Sunrise Cafe in Geneseo, across from the post office. So congratulations to everyone there for expanding their small business, and they're members of the chamber because of that. So happy to have them on board. Mural number 6 update. We have a mural that has been finished. It's painted up at Richmond Hill. We're right now assessing it to paint the donors. It's a donor recognition mural. So we'll be painting the donors onto the mural. We're hoping that we can get all the donors on there before October, but if not, we'll have a reveal party next spring. But our goal is to hopefully have this next month. A few event recaps. Annual Geneseo Chamber Golf outing on Friday, August 15th at Country View Golf Course. We had 18 teams, so we had a full round of golf. It was a lot of fun, great networking. Congratulations to Geneseo Communications. They are our 2025 Geneseo Chamber Cup champions. So that was really cool. It was great to have Let's Talk Geneseo also do a live broadcast from the golf course, so thank you guys for that. And looking forward to the next one next year. We also just had the 19th annual Trains, Planes, and Automobiles Festival this past weekend with the Stearman fly-in on the 4th. There were 52 Stearmans and 8 other aircraft for about 60 total airplanes out at the airport. It was packed for the lunch. It was great food, and it's just a really cool event. The pictures that the Geneseo Current has put up, if you have not seen them yet, go look at those photos because they took pictures of some of the acrobatic competition, and they're really amazing, incredible. And frankly, I thought they were dangerous looking photos, but they're safe. Really, really cool that Jen Air Park does that. They do a great job out at the airport. And then last Friday we had our Cruise the Canal tours. And so we cruise the canal tour. It brings in tourists from all over the area to Geneseo. They get to go and explore the canal. The wildlife was definitely out. That was great. We actually saw loons at the canal, and they were doing that quick wind walking where it looks like they're taking off. It looks like they're running across water. I mean, if they could have gotten out of their carts for a standing ovation, those tourists would have. That they got to see some wildlife in action. So it's great to showcase such a great local state park here through the canal tours. And our next ones will be the fall foliage tours on October 17th. And then, of course, the big Trains, Planes, and Automobiles car show that happened in downtown Geneseo this past Saturday. It was a massive success. It was the biggest one we've ever had, with over 380 cars and over 10,000 people estimated attendance. We're very happy with the result. We do things like we'll bring in food trucks, we'll bring in porta potties, we'll bring in extra security, as well as picnic tables. And we do this because of the infrastructure needs of this event. I mean, there are more people in Geneseo than even live in Geneseo during these chamber events. We're pretty proud of our ability to attract big crowds to Geneseo during our events. And the Trains, Planes, and Automobiles was awesome this year. So we're really happy about that one. But short victory lap is short-lived because we're getting right into State Street Market coming up on October 4th. So that's our next big event. A quick note, the citywide fall garage sales are happening this weekend, September 11th through 13th. All of the information is posted to the Geneseo Chamber's website and to our socials, so check them out if you're so inclined. I had mentioned State Street Market. This is the 10th year of State Street Market in Geneseo. So for a decade of driving retail to businesses and helping support a lot of businesses through that event. So I hope to see you all there. And then Cruise the Canal Fall Foliage Tours, October 17th. Scarecrow Row. We're starting to talk about Halloween now. Scarecrow Row is going to be Saturday, October 25th at the City Park. There will be information coming out about that, but everyone is invited to make a scarecrow. And it's a lot of fun for the family to get involved. And this year we're working on doing a Halloween dog costume pageant as well as a part of this event. So we're working with the Humane Society on that one. Stay tuned for a few more details on that. And then, of course, our Witches Night Out and Witches Weekend. It's a retail promotion, but we're really going to go on the Witches Night Out hard this year to get a lot of people out for that 3-hour celebration on that Thursday night. The Witches Night Out and Witches Weekend promotion will run October 30th through November 1st. So that is our Chamber of Commerce report here for September 2025. Happy to field any questions from the City Council.
Is that a quick question for you? Fantastic event
Mhm.
Saturday, beautiful weather. I've never seen so many cars here.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, does it actually help local businesses? I mean, are people coming into shops and all that? Again, I'm not taking away from the event at all.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious if it does also
Yeah, that's a great.
drive retail.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. It's something we always examine, right?
Mhm.
We know that our big events are good for the exposure of the community. And our hope is that people are at least being exposed to Geneseo, seeing some businesses that they may be interested in coming back in the future. Some events lend themselves to shopping and support better than others. For example, music festival happens at the park. Do you see a lot of activity downtown? Maybe not, but there is increased foot traffic. And a lot of our stores all over Geneseo, like especially around the South Oakwood corridor, they'll see increased traffic. Same with Trains, Planes, and Automobiles and State Street Market. Those are one-day events typically. I mean, the car show is one day. So there's a huge rush of people at once as opposed to music festival where it's 3 days. And then Christmas Walk, of course, is Christmas Walk. Everyone's busy on Christmas Walk. But bringing in the food trucks is something that, it's tricky. We intentionally don't put any food trucks north of the tracks because we have a lot of brick and mortars there. But we kind of place them down here where it's not going to be as, harmful. But then you also have other things that play sometimes too. Some feedback we got from a restaurant this time is, there's a business who's giving away free food as part of their community give back, and that hurts. Well, it's not the chamber's place to tell a business when and how they should do their community give backs. And so I hear them, but we won't do anything about it.
Okay.
It's just part of what it is. But overall, I think that the businesses know that we're bringing a lot of people in, and we are going to keep doing that. And we're going to keep testing these limits of our infrastructure.
Nice.
Anyone else? Okay, thanks, Zach.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
it. Okay, moving on. Item number 5 would be the city engineering report. Lauren?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On to, I guess, our ongoing construction projects in North State Street. They were hoping to be finished up here later part this week, but it looks like they're going to be finishing up their sidewalk and their last driveway tomorrow. At least that's what I talked to Tyler about. And then they are going to be finishing backfilling and preparing all the grade for seeding And it looks like temperatures might be spiking this weekend, so they might hold off till Monday or Tuesday to seed, depending on how this next kind of little mini heat wave that's coming in, because it'll throw it out of spec for their allowing time to be able to seed. On the Geneseo Well 33, the permit was received, and I've been working with Chad on that. So once everything's hooked up and ready to go, then we'll get the operating permit, sent in the IEPA on that. The pedestrian bridge, our staff is currently working through all the environmental documents that are required. The IHPA letter went in, and there's at least a 30-day wait on that. And then once we get that letter back, then we can finalize submitting the rest of our environmental forms into the agencies like IEPA, IDNR, and all those. So we can't send anything else in until that IHPA letter comes back. And like I said, that's minimum 30-day wait. The Geneseo water system analysis, currently waiting on the water samples come back before we can even think about wanting to spend a substantial amount of money to drill a deep well, just as a test well. We want to make sure we're being good advocates for the city and not just be spending money frivolously just to be moving forward. So we want to see if that water is a viable source for the city at that depth that we're thinking. On the North State Street plans, phase 2 from Wells to Ogden, I met with Brandon and the mayor here. That's probably about a month ago. And you guys expressed that you wanted to look at trying to bid that next phase for 2026, 2027 year. Here in October, we've seen bids in November and December. Year prior, getting out ahead of the contractors as very good times to bid. October might be a little soon. I don't know if forecasting for next year is quite there in October, but I'll work through that with staff. But we'll have our stuff ready to go for hopefully an late October bid date on that. And I think that's about it that we have going on for the city. Any questions from?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yes.
I hate to keep bringing it up, but what are we doing with the pedestrian bridge?
So we are in part of the environmental process right now. So we've got our schematic all done. We've started the application for all the environmental. IHPA is the Illinois Historic Preservation. Okay, so we have to submit a letter to them, and they have to come back and certify that we're not disturbing anything that's historical. So that's a minimum of 30-day wait. And then once we get that, then we have a little checkbox on all our forms for other agencies that we've prepared and got that letter back. So once we get that, then we can submit the rest of our forms.
So the last time we talked, I believe that we had raised it an inch or a half an inch or something,
It's half foot.
half a foot. Okay. And didn't we have everything in by then?
No, we have to have all that put together before we prepare.
And you have to have all that put together before you turn to this historical society and put a permit in for them. So what's the ETA now? Are we looking at? What, are we gonna have something for design prices and things this year, or are we looking at next year now?
Well, I mean, we can have all our stuff done and just be waiting on the final permit.
But that's 30 days, you said, right?
No, that's for the historic preservation. We can't, we don't know the timeline for IDNR. IDNR could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 months, it could be 6 months.
Okay.
I'm working with another community right now. We submitted, it's an IDNR loan or a grant that was given to a community. And so it's an IDNR grant. And we've had a permit into them for 6 months. And so I emailed the permit lady or the grant lady and the permit person and said, hey, where are we sitting at for this application? You know, can you give us a timeline? And it's been crickets. And I email them once a week. So I don't know. But then they turn around another project and they'll have an answer in less than a month. So it's hard telling with these government agencies on how they turn it around.
Was there more than one agency, more than IDNR, Lauren?
Yes,
Review.
we have to do IEPA, we have to do Illinois Historic Preservation,
Yep.
which is IHPA, and there is one other one. I apologize, I'm drawing a blank. So
So other than the historical review, once you get that signed out, there's 3 other reviews we'll be waiting on, roughly.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. But we have to have that check box
Sure.
as that's been completed before we submit.
That starts the
Yeah.
clock. Yeah.
So,
What is the scheduled time for this phase of State Street to be done? We look at the end of September to be open for through traffic.
they're gonna actually hopefully have it open through traffic, all opened up here by the end of the week.
Oh, okay, good.
So it's just that we'll have to have maybe day closure here or there for their seating operation. So, but they're planning on having everything backfilled here by the end of the week.
I've just had a few people, a lot of school moms that take their kid, they're wondering when that's going to be open, and it's like,
It looks like it's pretty well complete. Like I said, I walked it and was looking at things, and it'd be nice if we could just get that last chunk of sidewalk and that last driveway in. So,
thanks, Lauren.
I saw an older lady today that thought it was complete and she was on it.
yeah, I suppose you have that when they leave the barricades open up. So,
Wasn't open much. She found her way.
Thanks, Lauren.
all right, thank you.
Yep. Okay, moving on. Item number 6 on the agenda would be public comments related to agenda items. City ordinance allows members of the public to speak and give input up to 3 minutes. During public comment, there could be debate or action by the city council at this time. And nothing? Pastor Steve?
Just one thing, a question that
Sure.
doesn't need immediate answering, but I was just curious. I know when I moved here 11 years ago, I looked at the population sign and saw a number very much like the number that I still see today. But I've also noticed that we have lots of great building projects that seem to be going on. So I'm just a little bit confused as to why that number for the population is static when we do have a lot of building that's going on. And it made me curious, do we have parts of the city with, let's say, older two-bedroom homes that have become less desirable? And are we facing the possibility of some of those areas becoming somewhat inactive? So I'm just curious at some point, it could even be an email, but I'm just curious as to how those two facts go together, that we're doing a lot of building, but at the same point, we're not seeing the population go up.
Gene, there's nobody in the lobby, is there? No. Okay. All right, moving on the agenda. Item number 7 would be mayor's comments, and I have none at this time. City council comments. Any members of the council?
Mayor,
Yeah.
if you-
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I got James first, then I'll come to you, Martin.
I'm sorry. Didn't know James.
I was just going to answer about the population question. There's less children per household significantly. We actually have the highest occupancy rate that I've ever seen in Geneseo, but back in like 70s and 80s, there was a lot of 4 or 5 kid homes. You're seeing a lot of 1, 2 kid max. So I don't know if that explains all of it, but
That would give me an answer.
Okay.
I knew there had to be something. And that's
Oh.
not going to show up on the sign. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
I'm
Martin.
sorry, James. Just to let you know, on October 18th is the Pause for Cause at Lavender Crest that benefits the Humane Society. My wife has a table for 10, and there's plenty of openings if anybody wants to come in and sit at our table and do trivia. Everything goes to the Humane Society, and you can get a hold of my wife's office or me or whatever, but thank you, and hopefully see a lot of people there.
Okay, moving on the agenda, the city administrator comments, Brandon.
Just a couple of reminders for the council and the public, 9:15 through 9:19. This is next week is fall curbside cleanup. You can check out the city website or Facebook page to make sure you know your quadrant of town when they will be coming by for that map. And then on September 20th, that's a Saturday from 8 a.m. to noon, we'll have our annual e-waste day at the street department. That's at 686 Chicago Street to dispose of all of your e-waste that you've been collecting. That's it.
Okay, moving on. Item number 10 on the agenda, 10.1 would be the treasurer's report and capital assets report as submitted.
First one is the budget book. So we had our last our last bond payments come out this last month, so those should be updated as well as our EPA loan. And then next month, we'll see what the budget increases for our next deposit from the county for property taxes. Otherwise, the funds for the general fund look like they're coming in line, as well as electric, water, and wastewater. Next is the treasurer's report. Again, kind of talked about the revenues. We'll be seeing another increase in the smaller funds like the general fund and social security and all that next month when I have the revenues from taxes coming in. Otherwise, the funds all continue to look good. And then there's not much on the capital assets report. There weren't really many updates, primarily just small little ones such as the building here. There's been a couple updates of things needing to be replaced here. Otherwise, that is it for capital.
As far as capital projects for electric, we don't really have any updates. North State Street, the guys will start putting in the street lights before they start seeding the right of way there. Hopefully we'll get on that this week so that we will have that section lit up. With that road done on North State Street, we are able to get some junction boxes that we weren't able to get in where it was all tore up on Wells Street. So we'll be working on that and start converting houses. Other than that, we don't really have any updates unless you guys have any questions.
Thanks, Eric.
As for Public Works, we did get our inspection report back from Donahue on the North Water Tower. We will start working with IMIG to get our bid documents and set to get it out to bid for next year's work to be completed. Lauren commented, we are still waiting the samples that we took for the well exploration. Orange Street, we have completed the last 3 services. We have confirmed the 6-arm block is on the 12-inch main. Next week, we're going to start disconnecting and capping the 4-inch water main and getting everything tied, omitted, and so forth. So the 4-inch will be abandoned. And we'll cut in a couple 12-inch valves. And well 33, we're still having electrical work done. We're still been doing some piping. Our main concern is getting road work completed so we can have it asphalt and buttoned up before the end of the year. And then we did have the South Water Tower has been washed and cleaned. That is completed, and the annual street overlay is completed also. Any questions on any of our projects?
I'm just kind of curious, on one of the parents' Facebook group, there's a relatively vocal person that lives on Orange Street, ironically right across from Sean, who always complains about her watercolor, blah, blah, blah. Will this project help that area with that?
A resident can call us at any time. We have a lot of residents that do contact us. We do find issues with homeowners,
Sure.
you know, softeners or their piping or so forth. If a homeowner would call us, we can try to help them out.
Oh, and you guys have been great about it. I just happen
Yeah.
to see that you're doing that. And I just thought, well, maybe that.
A
would
lot
help
of
some area.
times, like if someone buys softener, you don't notice discolored water on low flow settings. It's when you turn on a bathtub with high velocity water and it scours the pipes inside your house, like old galvanized pipes or so forth. So, but if you know them, tell them to call us. We'll come out and help them and try to help them figure it out. So.
Craig? Okay.
Sure.
Well, I had a question about the color too.
Yeah.
And that didn't call.
Mhm.
Have you ever got
Yeah, Craig, your mic.
So anyway, have you ever got to someplace, I mean, have you ever found any water that hasn't gone through the system that's brown? I mean, can you say that your water that our water that comes through the city?
So it's a whole process of updating your system, so forth, you know. You'll have water mains that are 105 years old. We put chemicals in there to coat the mains so you don't have, you know, iron and so forth that sticks to them. We flush hydrants, we scour the mains, get all the debris and everything out of them, you know, and you'll still have an old system. And back in the day when there was just iron removal plants before, we've rebuilt them, assisted them. And there used to be the pump house that was just aerated. It wasn't even aerated. It was just chlorinated water and added polyphosphate to it. And we had probably a part and a half or close to 2 parts of iron we'd put in the system, which meets the standards for the EPA. You know, and coming out of our water treatment facilities now, we're putting out less than a 5/100th of a part of iron. So sometimes, you know, if we get in a high demand situation, we might put out like a half a part of iron, but it's just the accumulation of, you know, of old pipes and iron that builds up over time. I mean, even when we flush hydrants, you can switch the hydraulics of something and you might not have a main that should get cleared up as good as what it should, but you won't notice that until a line's scoured again and it stirs it up. You know, we put out like the lowest of old pipes and iron that builds up over time. I mean, even when we flush hydrants, you can switch the hydraulics of something and you might not have a main that should get cleared up as good as what it should, but you won't notice that until a line's scoured again and it stirs it up. You know, we put out like the lowest iron magnets we have in decades.
So
nowadays.
you said that the pipes are old, and I agree. We've been talking about that. Do we have any idea how long it'll be before we don't have any more old pipes?
Well, I mean, you change.
We talking 10 years, 15
Yeah,
years?
so part of the stuff with water wear is you put a useful life on a water main too. So I mean, by the time you think you got your water mains changed and you got everything updated, that might be 40 years from now, then you'll have 100-year-old pipes again. So it's just a continuous
Yeah.
maintenance and replacement program you need to do.
Okay.
But I mean, I think it's important to point out that we are tackling projects and,
Yeah.
and I think of the relooping you
Yep.
did right out here last year.
Yep.
And I could not quite explain the hydraulics properly to
Yeah.
Craig when we talked, but I mean, part of that was to like
Mhm.
resolve a bottleneck situation that
Correct.
does
Dead ends.
yeah, that does affect that area. So,
Get downtown.
I mean, we are tackling some of these capital projects
Yeah.
the best we can within our means, but
Yep.
I suppose we could always try to come up with $10 million and go off for a
Like the big
major
ones.
water main project.
It's like, there was a couple, I think there was a play on North Street, but, so the original main on North Street was probably put in the 20s, I believe. It was a 4-inch water main. 2001, they put a brand new 8-inch in for fire flow ratings back then. They left all the services on the 4-inch main, so your water quality on the 4-inch main is not as great as the 8-inch main because of the flow of water. Now that the 4-inch is abandoned and all the services are on the 8-inch, it's all relatively new main, so their water quality is substantially greater than what it used to be.
Yeah, I guess my question is, is this like a perpetual thing?
It's a year. Yeah.
We won't get to a point, I mean, it's gonna take by the time we get to 100 years, in 100 years, when somebody's here around and doing water mains and stuff, they'll go, yeah, well, we found pipes from 2024 or 2020 or,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. It's just continuing maintenance.
Yeah, and again, just my question is very positive, seeing that we're replacing the mains on Orange Street. And I happen to know that one of the people on Orange Street was always, and so I thought, oh, maybe this will coincidentally help them. But I know it's a continuous project that we're replacing, so.
It
kudos.
should help us flushing and doing our maintenance.
Awesome.
And then
But it is,
it's
the important, yeah, the most important fact is that citizens, if they could communicate not only with the public, because you know, that's their right, whatever, but to communicate with City Hall and the staff, because that issue could identify a bigger
So-
situation. I mean, they could be the first one bringing something to the attention, and albeit a Facebook communication is one thing, but make sure we know so we can make those investigations both internally with them if they want us to,
Correct.
as well as within the system in the area. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Chad. Hi, Chief.
Hello. Just a couple updates. That squad car has been fixed by Federal Signal. They sent their people here to do it. Gene's got it scheduled for underground graphics for the 15th for updating it with those markings. And then at the range building site, the only update would be there's a Verkada camera that's been purchased, similar to what's at City Park. So we will have that video monitoring up there. Does anybody have any questions?
Right under admin, the Richmond Hill Stage Project, the structure's been complete. Hopefully everybody's been up there to see it. Came out really nice. Hannah McGee, the Girl Scout that we're coordinating with on the project, was doing fundraising at TPA this weekend. The next step of this project is doing a nice double-sided sign up there, which has some information about both the Boy Scout and the Girl Scout project. Some nature aspects, some native plants and stuff from Geneseo. She's working on that. That'll be the next thing that we used fundraised funds to support up there. We'll be planting, reseeding the groundwork, the repaired ground from some of the equipment that was in there from the contractor soon. And then Lauren gave the update on the pedestrian bridge. We just need IMEG to get through that process and get the blessing. The Geneseo Foundation has graciously allowed us to continue to have that grant in the hopper with them for the $125,000. And so, ideally we get that spent by their end of fiscal year this spring. So we just need to keep pushing forward with all those submissions and get it rolling as quickly as possible. That's it.
Motion to approve the treasurer's report and capital asset reports as submitted.
Motion by Arnold,
Second.
second by Rothschild. Roll call.
Rothschild.
Yes.
Kennett.
Yes.
Swanson.
Yes.
Barnhart.
Yes.
Roothouse. James.
Yes.
Arnold.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Item number 11 would be the consent agenda.
11.1 approval of previous minutes, regular council August 12th, 2025 minutes, committee of the whole August 26th, 2025 minutes, special city council August 26th, 2025 minutes. 11.2 facade improvement grant application for State Street Development LLC. 11.3 R-25-11 sale of surplus property for the PD radios. 11.4 R-25-12 appointments to city boards, and 11.5 omnibus method.
Motion to approve using the omnibus method and to approve items 11.1 through 11.5.
Motion by Arnold,
Second.
second by Swanson. Roll call.
Arnold.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Roothouse.
Yeah.
Barnhart.
Yes.
Swanson.
Yes.
Kennett.
Yes.
Rothschild.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. No unfinished business. Moving on under item number 13 under administration. 13.1 would be the Waterworth utility rate study and customer rate design discussion.
Okay, so this is a continuation of the last meeting when Ari from Waterworth, who is on via Zoom right now, introduced the Waterworth system. We introduced our capital projects. That was an important discussion to set the stage for everyone understanding why we're doing this Waterworth rate study and why we're focused on planning for future capital project needs. Tonight with Ari, we're going to look at some of the rate design, some of the recommendations out of Waterworth for both water and electric service. We are going to save sewer sanitary for the next meeting. There were some things that came up today that city staff need to review with Waterworth that they have in some of their models that we want to hold off on that one until the next meeting. So after we do that with Waterworth, we will also take a look at our refuse proposals. We just went through a RFP and presentation process for our refuse, recycling, and yard waste services here in Geneseo. We'll take a look at that as well tonight and hopefully get some direction from the council on water, electric, and how we want to move forward with refuse. So with that, I think we'll let Ari come into the frame here. And I guess to set the stage a little bit more for this presentation, as staff's gone through some of this review on Waterworth's recommendations over the past couple of weeks, one of the things, and Ari will show this in some of the data that we've been focused on, is really trying to minimize the impact to in-city residences who are using average and responsible rates of our services. So average water consumption, and not try to just do blanket large increases that hit everybody the same way. So we're going to get into really water is the most complicated part of this, or the biggest change, rather just going another year and saying we're going to do a blanket increase that affects everybody the same. We tried to look at this in more detail and say, can we be smarter with how we spread the billing? Who is actually using water in the community? how much of a share of revenue is everybody contributing, commercial customers versus residences, people that irrigate their lawns, and how we want to take action on increases from there. So with that, Ari, I'll let you get into the presentation.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you again. Okay, with that, I'm just going to share my screen. And we're going to go. Can everyone see it okay?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So the agenda for today for our presentation is to walk through a recap, then go through water, electric, and then have an open discussion. And in the meantime, when we do finish water and then we do finish electric, we can also stop in between if you have some pressing questions. But to begin, just to give everyone a recap, and Brandon did a great job of doing this, but we're basically a live financial forecasting model, and that's the results of that study is what you're going to be seeing here today. And we're going to be focusing more on the rate design aspect, as Brendan was mentioning. So to set us off, we're going to start with the water department. The first thing that we noticed in our last presentation together was this model, which is the status quo, where we have 4% increases and we put all of our different capital projects out all the way up to 2030. And in this model, you can see that we have the capital expenses in the green and those mountains of expenses, and then the huge loan that's going to be coming in for in 2027 to pay for that $8.5 million project for the new treatment facility. And that causes a large annual debt service to rise after that point, which you can see in 2028. If you notice, in our last presentation, we covered this, how the cash position, which is this dark black line right there, starts to decline and goes under our floor, which is our operating threshold. This is when we have an alert and a red flag. We're like, okay, and let's maybe try to stay above that at all times, which is why we start this whole process in the first place. Another thing that we noticed from last meeting was the asset ribbon schedule that Chad had put a lot of time into, where we discovered that we have a $5.7 million backlog that currently exists, and we're trying to address that actively with our capital planning. And also the AXO figure, which is the annual cost of sustainable ownership, tells us that we should be spending about $1.1 million roughly on capital activities. Now, it doesn't mean spend every year. It could also be saving up for the future years. And that's what the asset rotation schedule is outlining for us, and is helping the Public Works Department inform their decisions when it comes to capital planning. Finally, last session, we also discussed a proposed solution where we're going to be discussing the rates after this. But when you look at it, we also see that with a few rate changes that are going to be proposed soon enough, we can see that we're able to stay above that floor from 28 onwards. We're able to stay above the red dotted line, and we're able to be financially sustainable for the future expenses. Okay, so after this recap, we're going to go into our current rates. Currently, you can see that we had rural and non-rural. We just swapped those names out for inside and outside city limits. And you can see that this is our current rate card in front of us, where we have the inside city on the left, outside city on the right, with the base charges for residential, non-residential, and so on. And after we have already absorbed this rate card, we know it really well. We also wanted to look at the consumption data and understand, okay, how do we break out our customer and our customer classes for water? You could see that we have in-city residential, which is 2,842 service connections as of end year in 24. And then we also have the consumption, which is the highest in. And you can see that it slowly goes down all the way to the outside customers, which are cumulative less than 100 when it comes to for residential, non-residential irrigation. We do notice, and it's something that important that we need to notice as well, is the fact that in-city irrigation recreational, when we separate it out from just residential users, holds a good majority in terms of the consumption and service connections and how much revenue they bring in for us, which is which Brandon was mentioning. So now what we're going to be doing is we're going to go into billing equity, which is where you have consumption versus the revenue contributed for each one of those users. So you could see that we have this little bar graph in front of us. It starts from in-city residential and ends all the way to outside irrigation. Clearly, the largest customer is inside residential, and you can notice that inside city residential is contributing more compared to their consumption. It could be down to also the cost of serving that particular client and that customer class. So hence we see the difference. We can see for in-city non-residential, it's the inverse where the revenue contribution isn't up to what their consumption is relatively. And also you can see in-city irrigation recreational is also slightly higher than what the consumption is. However, I would say that each one of these customer classes that we're seeing in front of us has a different meaning, because for inside residential, this could be essential water use compared to inside city irrigation recreation, which is more discretionary. And you can see the largest difference between the two is inside city non-residential. Gonna pause here. Okay, you can always come back to this page. When it comes to structural changes, after taking all the data that we had and we analyzed, there were a couple of components and changes that we wanted to propose. The first was residential. We noticed that if we just charge a flat rate, it's not going to be fair for all of our different users. So we prefer to go for a new 3-tier inclining block rate. For non-residential, because of what we saw there, that they may not be contributing the same and maybe contributing less than what they're consuming, we're going to be charging them higher for the 5/8 and 3/4 meter sizes, higher than residential. Also, something that we did follow for non-residential is the fact that we want to follow the AWWA, the American Water Association, in terms of the meter billings. So make sure that the meter, or when it comes to the 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, and so on, that they're following standard guidelines closely. For the last two, we have irrigation and recreational. When we have the base and minimum charge that we increased about 1.5 times than the residential user to mark it as non-essential use. And then we also have the consumption charge that mirrors the new inclining block rate to really focus on the people that are using the most water. Lastly, outside city, something that Brandon and I had a discussion with the rest of the team was that we want to incentivize more people to be using the inside city services that we provide and prevent free riders, is we're charging them about 2.5 times the in-city users with the same structural changes as above. And that's reflected in this rate card in front of us, where we can see that residential base charges are increasing the standard 4% that we always have in our ordinance. And then we also go to see that non-residential, as mentioned, for the 5/8 and 3/4 is increasing by 10%. And then you add the equivalencies in there, and that's when you start to see all this cost change and become more fair for all the different meter sizes that we have in there. We also noticed the irrigation that I was mentioning about, which is a 1.5 times increase from what the base charge for residential users is. And then we see that same apply for the minimum charge. We have the residential charge, again, just increasing by 4% in line with their base charges. And then finally, we come down to residential consumption charges, which includes irrigation as well, which follow the same rate component. And you can see that these are the new tiers where you have 0 to 1,500, 1,500 to 4,000, 4,000 to 8,000, and 8,000 plus. And these percentages are being derived from what the consumption charge was based on the current rate card. Lastly, we just have the non-residential users where we have a 10% increase, again, following what we had for the base charges. And then we just increase the non-residential consumption charges by 4% across the board. So that's for the inside city, and outside city follows the same guidelines we're looking at. It's just that they're 2.5 times more than what we have in there. So after those changes are applied with the structural changes that we spoke about and the rate increases for 4% for residential, we can see that we're able to reduce the contribution, how much is coming from inside city residential, and focus it more and redirect it towards the irrigation users and some of the outside city residential, non-residential irrigation users. And we've redirected it towards that with our rate increases and meeting our revenue targets.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
How come the in-city non-residential is low?
That's a great question.
Assumption, why is the revenue below what they're using, where everything else needs to be above it? It would seem to me like, I mean, they can just pass it on to the customer, whatever they want to do, but is it because of the volume they're putting through, or?
It's so to clarify on that, we're saying that you notice that in-city residential and in-city non-residential drops below than what they were contributing in the past, and the other categories start to increase. I believe it's due to the volume and also the fact that we're increasing irrigation recreational by a lot more. So its proportion now is being taken by irrigation and recreational, especially when we're increasing of 50% and so on.
Yeah, it's essentially because the irrigation customers and the outside city limit increases are so substantial that it helps. We're flattening out the commercial a little bit, but you don't see it in these graphs as much because of the substantial increases to irrigation and outside of city. Is that correct, Ari?
Yes, sir.
But if you go back to the last chart,
The one which
Going.
chart, sir? This one?
it does, yeah, it doesn't look like, it looks like there's more consumption for the non, because I guess you're adding on the irrigation into the non-residential. Is that what you're doing?
Irrigation into the non-residential?
The in-city non-residential, it seems that's staying the same.
Yeah, after the change, if you go back to the other graph, it has all three of these. So you can see that we have, I'm wondering if anyone can see my marker. Can we see it?
Yes.
Just want to make sure. Okay. So what we're trying to discuss right now is the in-city non-residential. These two are what currently exist, and then the lighter blue that appears in front of us is what's the projected after the structural changes. And currently, as Brandon had also mentioned, the fact that in-city non-residential, the lighter blue reduces, and also the same applies for the inside city residential, is because our rate increases are focused more, like, to achieve our revenue target. They're focusing more on irrigation recreational, and which is why you see it increase a lot more than what their contribution was before.
I hear you. I just don't understand why. It looks like on this graph that the in-city non-residential, the build revenue contribution is less than what was in the previous graph.
It is slightly less. It's like maybe 1% less.
To your point, Craig, I would have thought that in city, you would say that everybody is paying roughly the equal share, whereas I feel like we're now subsidizing commercial even more.
Yes. I hate to admit this, but I agree with him.
Commercial's paying less of their fair share than they were before.
Because they can pass it on.
Yeah.
That's the problem I'm having. I agree with the rest of it as far as the irrigation recreational, and definitely agree with the outside of it. But that in-city non-residential, I mean, from this graph, it doesn't look like they're paying their fair share.
Yeah.
It's something we can go back to the table on. I would just proceed with caution there. You can see what we've already increased the commercial accounts and non-residential. It's substantial. So we want to tailor that to make sure that we don't go too hard on commercial accounts and for development attractiveness and things like that.
I can speak for the administration. That's something they definitely wrestled with as we talked through this quite a bit, is trying to equalize it the best we can, obviously, because there's ground to be made up that should have been made up a long time ago. Residents should have never been, in essence, subsidizing business to a certain degree. But we do have to figure out what our threshold for remaining competitive as a community is, because there is a balance there.
I get it, but my concern is we put the emphasis on in-city irrigation, recreation, the outside. What if they decide to heck with it? We just won't run irrigation.
Well, I don't think that's gonna happen. The people that are really dug into watering their lawns probably will. But the point. Okay, well, the same is true about that we could just automatically go to the max and not have people that manufacture do something in this community say, the heck with it, I'll just go to Cambridge. So we have to. No.
So when we created this, we did the tiered structure with residential because we can look at average uses for residential homes. If you want to be, the average consumption in Geneseo for water and sewer is 3,000 gallons a month. So we know that's a reasonable basis to look at these rates. If you, the inclining block tier structure is applied to residential because if you want to be a high user, or if you want to irrigate, or if you want to have a recreational meter, you can see how the rates start to increase when you get to those higher usage tiers. If you want to use more water than your average user, you're going to pay more for it. That's the methodology going into this. With the non-residential customers, you know, talking this over with Waterworth and internally, that's really not something we wanted to apply because there's businesses and organizations in Geneseo that have always used a set amount of water because that's the nature of their business. So where we wanted to adjust them was on the base charge and follow the industry standards. We're low on that right now. That's why you see that AWWA recommendation on the increasing rates depending on how large their meter size gets. But we did not do a tiered structure for them because then you're getting into a whole nother debate about passing judgment on nature of business and what's suitable for, you know, the school is automatically going to be in a top tier usage every month. It's not a fair system, in my opinion.
I just think it's interesting, and I imagine it's just a quantity of the math that even though we're increasing the rates, and you know, if you go back to that last graph, that commercial was, I mean, they're dropping. You would have think that increase, but I think it's just a portion of the pie, right? It just makes it look
Yes, sir.
like it's going down.
The revenue portion.
To-
Not.
But here it looks like it is because it's percentage.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes it look like the revenue, but it's not. And that's what I was trying to get to, right?
Yeah, can you explain that better, Ari, that this is really looking at slices of the pie and not necessarily revenue contribution?
Yes, sir. And oftentimes you always get lost in that, but in fact, all of them, all these customer classes are paying more because we're increasing rates, and it is a slice of the pie. Because if I were to, let's say, go back to the rate card, and if I did only 4%, let's say on the non-residential base charge and the minimum charge, then what would happen is that the slice of the pie, even though their revenue is increasing, we would end up seeing this lighter blue on in-city non-residential be even lower. And you can see that for in-city residential, if I matched it with the 10%, this also would have been closer to the top. So it's just adjusting the slice of the pie. And you can clearly see right now with the recommendation that irrigation recreational has increased its portion.
How can we help, Craig?
I don't know. You throw all these numbers up. I get it. I agree you don't want to increase and scare away the business.
Right.
All for that.
Yep.
But you're also asking businesses that have, just like we do in a household, you have a leaky toilet, you don't let it, you get it fixed, or you run more efficient. So you put more efficient equipment in, which only makes it better. So they're running, but how do I know that the non-residential isn't running sprinkler systems too?
Well, but so that, okay.
So then we're giving them a deal. But what if they tell you that they don't want the irrigation meters anymore and they just run off the regular pipe?
I don't. Then you're gonna pay. super
You're gonna,
for that.
you're gonna feel it on your sanitary charge if you
sewer,
if you
Okay.
decide to go down that route.
No, I'm just wanting to make sure we're just, like I said, this,
Yeah, and that's why I asked. I want to make sure, and then the staff wants to make sure they get all the direction they need. So this is first look at this. You know, we're looking for direction, obviously, but we can definitely go back with other things. So I don't want anybody in this room to leave with unresolved issues or questions. Tonight's the night to let's get those answers.
Craig, I kind of felt the same as you, and the reason people have the irrigation is because we debated it a couple years ago, because we had an outdoor pool, and I was like, we're paying septic on filling a pool that will never, ever, ever go into the septic, but it didn't make any sense to split the meters for a one-time pool, but, you know, so if you think about this increase, and I just did, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I still feel like this increase far outweighs, you're still far better off than if you were to remove this and now you're paying sewer on water that's not ever going into the sewer. So I still think you're ahead as a home. I think if financially, if you bothered to put in a separate meter, you would still, if you went back to the other, you'd be paying a lot more because now you're paying the sewer on top of that. Does that make sense?
yeah, I agree. I just, okay. So are we doing this annually? Are they reviewing this annually? Then why are they bringing it out to 2029 and 2030 and who cares?
Well,
If we know that it's going to go up next year,
No.
then wouldn't they redo it next year to evaluate where we're at from that point?
So this first year, you know, we want to set the stage for a plan through 2030. Hopefully, although we're going to review this every year and make adjustments as needed, we won't have to do these big changes, and we can just have a more of a smooth set rate increase structure moving forward.
And I think the other part of that, and the important part we're learning now, is the liability we have with the aged distribution system, I guess. And when you see that graph of what the liability is going to be as mains and other things continue to age, we're attacking a capital improvement of the system now with this large expenditure. But all those other things aren't going away. The mains aren't going to get any newer. And if we, you know, we're already, $5.7 million right there in backlog. So I think you have to be aware that that number is going to continue to grow. So that's part of trending this out for that long too.
I guess my question is, why would you trend it out if you're going to adjust it each year?
Because priorities could change. We could have a capital project.
Right.
You had a catastrophic failure on a well a couple of years back that totally changed the game plan for water completely for a couple of years in our capital spending. So we want to make adjustments in the model. And, you know, this is done every year throughout the year we're going to use this as a budgeting tool and a capital planning tool moving forward.
So are the graduations that you're putting in this year, they're not going to be the same adjustments as you're making next year?
Yeah, these rates are for 2026. And then, like I said, I think the goal would be to come back when we look at it, and hopefully if everything goes as planned with the capital projects and all this planning, that we can recommend smaller increases and consistent increases would be the plan, given any unforeseen circumstance coming up.
Like how much do we know?
Well, it's hard to answer.
I know,
because
I know, I
just like-
agree.
I'm just saying, with the example of a well failure and things of that nature, right? And with the extreme age of our distribution system, we could have some type of catastrophic failure again that I could sit here and tell you now, no, we'll only need a modest increase to basically cost of doing business increase for next year. Those things could happen, and we could be unfortunately looking at another large capital project that we're not aware of now that would require us to dig deeper into this. So that's the good news is we, you know, there was frustration when we got on earlier in our days about not looking at this in this depth. So we're setting the stage to do this, and now with all this data input, it should be a lot more streamlined as we go forward. At that point, it's putting in the projects on the things that need to be done.
More consistency is what we're at.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I mean, the eye-opening thing for this, for me, has been the breakdown of all the different categories. I think back to the rate discussions I participated in the past, and they were, they were well thought through. I'm not going to say they weren't, but I didn't really think about, or we never dug as deep into what the commercial side was using, or we never, I never even thought of lawn irrigation as a huge high demand separate classification.
But they have it on different meters. So you could check that at any point in time. No, but they're on different meters, right? So at any point in time, you could have checked, they could have looked at it and said, oh, we see a little uptick
Right.
in.
What I'm saying is the discussions that we would participate in the time were, we need to look at water. We did not look at water in this totality of all these different spokes and cogs in the wheel and how they affect. I mean, when you see the numbers of usage that some of these other categories are using, they're huge. I mean, we know we use a lot of water in the summer, right? We talk about it all the time. We can pump 1.4 million or whatever it is. We bump up against 1 million sometimes. But when you see what that looks like over a year, I mean, that's a lot of water. That's a lot of demand on a system.
So when did they start putting the irrigation meters in? I'd never heard of it before.
I mean, my folks built their house in like 89 and they did it back then. So.
And nobody thought that the rate shouldn't be different than the regular water rate?
I was hoping to keep it the same, but it's definitely gonna have to go up. But I'm not gonna pay the sewer on it, so that's there's the balance, if you will.
It's like anything. I mean, we can ask all these questions, why, but all you can do is try to learn from your past and not repeat it. And that's what we're trying to do here. So,
Something that I really appreciate the staff doing, and Brandon mentioned it earlier, is, really trying to minimize any increases for the average household.
Yep.
And I think it's a very, every dollar is important, but $1 a month or something, it's very minimal for the water increase if you are just an average user of 3,000 a month, which is the traditional. It's when you go way above that or have fringe cases where it starts. I just think that's an important message for people to hear, is that the vast majority of people in Geneseo will see just a relatively small increase.
And Ari has that slide up on the screen now. Maybe this would be an appropriate time to explain that slide, Ari.
Perfect. I know we've been referring to this quite a bit. So essentially, again, this is just inside city residential users, 3/4. You have the consumption in the top from 1,000 all the way to 12,000. I know that Brian mentioned 3,000 is the average usage. So you can see clearly that the current rate, they were paying about $27.31, and now they're going to be paying around $28.33, which will be a $1 increase, $1.2.
Yeah, but I don't think anybody's having a problem with the in-city residential. It's the others we're having issues with.
Mm-hmm.
True, it's just that's a very small number but true.
Do you have something else? Oh, okay. Yeah, James.
The largest debt moving forward looks to be the 8.5 million for the water treatment plant, and then the debt associated that like after 2027. Who exactly, or based on the rates and the different classes of customers, how is that debt being made up? Like what percentage of the debt of the 8.5 million would be based on residential versus irrigation versus commercial?
Would be bonded, so we wouldn't really figure out the whole bond amount and payment of each year.
So would it be just by rates, or is there any? It just says like there's 8.5, that's the biggest cost, but are we looking to recoup it from?
Well, we'll have bond payments that'll fall off around that time. So
Or
we'll
existing
have-
bond payments. Yeah.
So we'll have bond payments fall off, we'll take on.
Well, I mean, like, would most of that money then be paid by people that use the highest volume of water? Would that be most towards that debt in the future? Or would it be?
More residential customers and commercial customers.
Sure.
Non-residential customers. Same with electric. Our residential is much larger than what our commercial is.
I was just curious, like, if there's a breakdown on how much of that 8.5 million will be reimbursed based on essentially commercial customers versus residential versus things like that. That's, if that makes sense.
Chad? Dollar wise, you're saying, yeah.
Every year you'll have changes in your rate and schedule, so being able to say.
Right, I'm not talking, but I'm saying like how much of, would you think the residential would be paying towards that?
I think what they're saying is where it breaks down into the percentage of what they have, like the most of it was residential. We're gonna pay most of the debt back.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to go to that slide, Ari, that at least shows the breakdown of the customer classes, and so James could get an idea on,
Is it, so it's the revenue slide that basically if we're just paying for debt service using our rates, then this is most likely going to be the breakdown. Unless we have some other reimbursements coming in or some special fees in 2027.
Ari, is this what most municipalities are doing as far as that you work with?
Yes, sir. When you say most municipalities are doing this, as in you're saying that how do they pay back the debt service? Or
No,
are we going to
That's what I was asking, yeah.
go ahead, sir? I couldn't hear that.
Yeah, I was just like, is it factored in who will be paying off like the majority of that debt service?
If you think of it, every time you get a debt service, unless there is some type of break or special fees that's put in, the way that our cash balance even balances in our model is because we increase our rates and the ratepayers are going to be paying back for the debt service, right? Now, it could be where if it's an expansion project for some communities, they have some developer fees that they charge and they end up paying for it. And instead of the current user base, it's the new connections that are coming into the system that end up paying for the debt service. But it depends. Someone has to pay. And in this case, in our model, if we don't make any rate changes, I would say this is the revenue split in terms of who's going to be contributing towards the 8.5 million debt service that we're going to be paying off annually. And if we do make changes to the model, it's going to go back to the split that we have here.
Okay.
Does that help answer your question?
Yeah. Craig, you had a question too, didn't you? Oh, okay. I have the same problem.
These actually put their bond payments on their tax bill. Actually, quite a few do.
Right. So would it be like 5 million in bonds? Or would it be all 8?
It would be all.
Okay. Yeah, 8.5 is what I was thinking in the presentation. Okay.
okay, I think we're ready for the next slide.
Perfect.
You can't see us.
I can't see anyone, so I apologize. Okay, so we're gonna start with our electric department now. And the next stage for us is, again, the same recap that we have in the long-term financial model. Just as a disclaimer, as mentioned in our last presentation as well, in this model, the power costs are projected to increase 3% annually. In reality, they can fluctuate, which is why we want to review them annually. But in this model, you can see that this is the status quo if we do not adjust our base rates. And then we have the asset replacement schedule that that Eric and I were working on with Andreas in the past. And you can see that we don't really have a lot of in terms of backlog, but we are seeing in terms of the annual cost of sustainable ownership, it's about $2 million, which means either you're using it to pay off current debt, spending capital existing for capital expenses that we have, and then also putting it away for future capital expenses. And the proposed solution that we have in place, we're able to curb that and ensure that we're staying above the red dotted line at all times to make sure that we can cover for any unexpected operating expenses. And move forward, we see that this is the current rate card. And focusing on the key drivers for in terms of revenues over here. So you have the regular base charge, the large base charge, which is $25.35. We have the residential consumption charge, regular commercial, and then large commercial, and followed by large demand. This is what we have currently. And then I would also want to say that currently the nonprofit users includes the city, church, hospital, and schools when I continue the discussion. So we break it down into our service connections. We can see that we have residential all the way to street lights in terms of service connections and fixtures and so on. And then you can see the consumption by all of those customer classes and the revenue that they bring in. If we go back to this slide, which is the billing, equity, and consumption, when you're comparing consumption versus the revenue contributed, you could see that, again, we have residential, which is much higher than their consumption, and then also commercial, just slightly lower, and that follows the same trend follows for hospital, school, church, city, and streetlights is quite equal. So we notice that the biggest discrepancy exists when we have the 6.2 difference for residential. And for electric, we went through a full cost of service analysis to make sure we account for assets as well. And you notice that when you go into our rate card, one of the biggest changes that we'll see is our variable fees. We found that our commercial users are definitely being subsidized and should be contributing much more. And the fact is that base charges, if we increase them for large and regular charge, especially for regular commercial, if we don't split them out or we keep them the same, it can affect residential users more than regular, which is why we opted, and after our conversations, Eric, we went for more of a variable charges route. So when I go to our proposed rate card, you can see that we did not make any changes to the regular base charges. Instead, we opted for increasing the consumption charges. You can see that we've increased residential by 2%, keeping all tiers the same. Then for commercial, we have increased by 3.5%. Then for large commercial and nonprofit, we have increased by 4.5%, followed by a 3.5% increase in large demand charges. Altogether, sorry.
So I'm quite curious, in the middle of summer, when the air is on and everything's on, what is a standard, how much does a standard or a normal or a typical household use in kilowatts? Summer. Yes. Okay.
An average throughout the year, 700 kilowatts to 1,000. Depending on what you have in your home. If you have more electric heat in your home, you're going to go up to the higher portion of it. We also see customers in the wintertime that are all electric. When we were going through this, like I already said, we looked at what the commercial customers were contributing and what they were using, and you could see that graph that it was much lower. And that's why these rates reflect more towards commercial customers and large commercial customers, because in the peak of summer and majority of the time, those are our main users that we're going to see. They're going to use the most kilowatts. They're going to put the most strain on the system. And when there's, we're using and drawing all that energy, those are our highest cost. And this is where it's going to come from.
So we're raising the commercial customers more for electric than for water. Am I misled there, Ari?
I think it might be also in electric. The residential was subsidizing the commercial so much. That's why we had to try to balance this out more. But yeah, I believe that in the water presentation, it did look like the commercial wasn't being raised as much.
Back to the water presentation, the non-residential was going up. So about 95% of our meters in town for non-residential, so commercial organizations, things like that, are all of those 5/8 and 3/4 meter sizes. 95% of them. Those are going up by 10%. 10%. This is 4.5 on the largest category.
Right, it is going up. It just doesn't look at it, because there's not as many customers.
It's a.
All your customers
Pull
are
it back to the
5/8,
graph again,
3/4
yeah.
in water. Where we have, our large commercial doesn't go by meter size, doesn't go by service size, it goes by how much you actually use. It's a little bit different. Water consumption and energy consumption are kind of two different things.
But we're not afraid of raising the rates just the 4 or 5% and scaring away the customers that we will with the water though, right? Is that what you're saying?
On the commercial side?
Yes.
No,
Not, I'm not talking about residential. Doesn't look like residential is being affected for a typical family home. We're talking about these subsidizing it with the water you're subsidizing with all the non-resident irrigation and all that other stuff out of city or whatever. But with electric, we're going towards the non-resident in city. Correct? Am I understanding that?
We don't have an outside city rate. It's, you're either residential or you're commercial or you're a large commercial customer. We don't have the same categories as water does. And also with commercial, what we're seeing is transformer costs are so much higher to buy a large 500 kVA transformer, 1000 kVA transformer that are $30,000. Well, that $30,000 doesn't come from that company. That is recovered from the rates that's going on.
I agree with that. I'm just trying to make this all make sense. That's all.
I just had a question on the bonds. Did you say a revenue bond or is what the city's looking for the debt service? What kind of bond?
We usually do a general obligation revenue bond, yeah.
Okay, but it'd come to the taxpayers, it'd be a general obligation bond.
No, all of our bonds have to be abated for them not to come back. So like, for instance, community center,
Yeah,
their bonds are paid by tax dollars.
The enterprise funds bonds are paid from revenue that is brought in.
yeah, I got the idea. I just thought a general obligation bond had to be was spread across all taxpayers, and a revenue bond was usually recouped by rates or by the customer base of the service, which would be most people.
All of them are set up where we could put them on tax levy.
Oh, they all are.
All of them are.
And like, you can't use like the state revolving loan type thing, or is anybody for a water project?
We can use like EPA loans if they're available for them.
We did that on the first treatment plant. Yeah.
Okay, I know there's a lot more involved with that stuff, but I'm just curious. Thanks, I'm just learning on the spot, so.
We all are.
You can go to the next slide, Ari.
Perfect. Sorry, I can't really see anyone, but that was great discussion. I wanted to drop. And you can see now, when it comes to our commercial and residential users, it's becoming more leveled for the most part. You can see that some slight increases. And I would say that nothing much has changed. It's just maybe a slight percent here and there. It has remained more or less the same, but there are small changes in the background. And you can also see that we are protecting the residential customer clause. It's just an increase by $1 or $2 if they're consuming 1,000 kilowatt hours. What I would say is that the idea of these new rates is to set a new precedent where we're seeing in the COSA that commercial needs to provide more, which is why we're trending towards that direction without increasing all the base charges. Because if you increase the base charges, we're afraid that if we separate them out, maybe you could do, let's say, a residential commercial charge or residential and commercial separately. That could also work, but we opted for more of a variable option. And that,
Explain to
sorry.
me again, what's the difference between a regular base charge and a large base charge? Is that one's commercial, one's residential, or is it the amount you use, or?
It's the sizing of it. And I think Eric can shine a bit more because we categorize them as based on their size and how much energy they're consuming. And in our classifications, we split them up into regular versus large for all users.
So
And most, Sorry, go ahead, sir. I was,
A regular charge is residential and regular commercial. When you get into the large base charge, it is large commercial. It is those larger customers because their infrastructure is much larger and bigger. And just to point out, like, so we do have multiple commercial customers that will go from regular commercial into large commercial and then back into regular commercial on their kilowatt usage for that billing cycle. So you might have like some of the grain elevators or processes that during the summer months, they don't use very much. Then you get into the fall and the dryers are on, and then they get into that large commercial rate. And then once they drop back out of it, they'll go back to regular. So it does vary between those two.
So if I'm reading that chart correctly, on the residential consumption, the first kilowatt, 500, and the one over, they're both, so nothing's really changing. Is that how I'm seeing that? Or am I reading this wrong?
So in electric, we have what's called a declining rate block. So the first 500 kilowatts, a little bit higher, and then it kind of goes down. It's opposite of water.
So the increase is the same, but. Yeah, the increase is the same, but the kilowatt per hour rate decreases as you go to a higher tier.
And with large commercial, you have to remember their kilowatt charge may be lower, but they're also being charged a demand charge. So you're multiplying that by the amount of kilowatts they're actually using.
Not quite related, but have we thought about for water and electrical last year, we changed it so we actually, we wanted to be more, if I remember correctly, more transparent in our billing. And so we had a rate, and then we had a capital asset or capital project charge. And then we kind of added extra things.
That was water.
Oh, that was water.
Water.
So what you're talking about is unbundling the rates.
Well, I guess, so I'm saying with water, then that 8.5 million should be a charge on top of the rate, not the base rate. If we're saying that we have a capital project charge on top of, then that would be above and beyond the rate of the just usage. I was thinking we did that for electrical, and my apologies.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the intent or understanding at the time was to try to separate out while capital projects on a yearly basis trended more towards the distribution side of things, Chad, versus capital investments, large capital investments, albeit to the system as a city as a whole.
The large debt service.
Some of the smaller stuff that we have on this 5.7.
I'm sorry, I was thinking it was backwards. So we're already.
That's how I understood that to be the intention at the time. Chad, would you agree or?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was thinking it was backwards. I was thinking we're doing that in electric, and I was like.
What we do in electric is we do have the power cost adjustment, where we do adjust on whether or not our energy costs become lower or our energy costs become higher to help us in, if the prices go up, that we're bringing in more revenue to cover that extra cost. And then if it does become lower, that we're giving that credit back to the customer because the utilities see a benefit from it.
And I think in this instance, if let's say we were to try to wrap $8.5 million into that capital line item, that's going to be, that's a service, that service we're going to have to pay for 20 years. That's not coming off. We wanted to look at that number, what projects needed, kind of a flowing number that we had a threshold. We didn't want to go too high above or too far below to try to get a baseline minimum amount of work done each year that we need to get done.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I finally understand what's happening. So it makes a lot more sense. So essentially the idea are the rates will increase revenues to the point where you can abate the bond and have enough revenue coming in that you'll stay and you'll never have to go for a tax levy, ideally.
Yeah.
Okay, so the rates had already factored that in. So it would be, so then the percentage we're seeing on the customers is essentially the same percentage they would be paying towards most of that debt. I mean, although some other revenue sources, I guess, could come in.
Right.
Following it? Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
I'll be
in
quiet.
Waterworth, when we do the budget portion of it, those bond payments are in the expense line items.
Yeah.
So, you know, why we go out to 2030, that's because we can kind of project out what those expenses are going to be, even if it's a bond that we don't know we're gonna get or how much it's going to be. We can see that and put those in that expenses already.
In this case, the ones that'll fall off soon are represented in that.
Yeah, and
obligation.
the ones that fall off are in there, our capital projects are in there, you know, our O&M projects with an adjustment for inflation is in there. So that we kind of have an idea going into the next couple of years on what we're looking at. It's a pretty good roadmap for us.
When are we doing that water thing? When was that debt
Uh,
going in?
I believe 2027.
How do we know it's going to be 8.5 million?
Well, nothing's for
guess For, you had a guess for the other one and you were 3 million off. Yeah.
But your point's correct, Craig. These are best estimates that
Because I've heard you
engineers.
say enough times that the costs only go up.
I mean, things could change within a.
So
year
it
and a
could
half
be
or 2
8.5
years.
million today
It
and.
could be.
What did Lauren do?
Yeah, I mean, and with the work we're doing with the water studies now, before we do test well, I mean, we are doing baby steps along the way to try to refine this number and bring it even into a closer tolerance, I think would be I mean, because we're not going like crazy deep on the water source. We've made that determination. So, I mean.
But you never know.
I know, I'd love to know. I'd love somebody to be able to sign right here.
Yeah, you put that in writing right now that
Yeah.
they have.
Hurricane Katrina made lumber prices go up 50% overnight, basically.
Yeah.
You know, something like that can happen.
I-
You just
Yeah, I mean, the tariff world we're living in and all, you know, there's just so many things out
Sir,
there.
if I could
But something happens and before then, do we still go through with that? I mean, we have to do it because of the EPA, right?
No, that's on the water treatment side.
That's what I'm asking about.
Oh, I
8.5
thought
million.
this is water. We're not on wastewater.
Oh, the 8.5 is on the wastewater?
It's on water.
10.
I know, we're tabling the wastewater.
Okay.
Craig's thing is why are we doing the 8 million? Is it regulation or just a projected need? Right.
Right.
So if for something happened, I think what his question is, if something crazy happened and that price went to 20 million, would we go at that point, oh gosh, we're going to hold off, or are we actually like, we have to do this? It doesn't matter what.
Sure, we obviously come back and review those things. Yeah.
So is there a reason we're waiting to do that?
Wait. We're trying, yeah.
And I think we're also trying to keep track of all of our existing bonds, and we want some of our existing bonds to be dropping off when we add this. We don't want too many paying too many loans at once.
Right. And at the end of the day, even with the work we've done recently with the additional wells, I should say well, because one replaced one that we lost, we're still at max, bumping up against max capacity for a third of the year. And that's not a good position for a city to be in. So we need to look at expanding the system at some point. And that's,
So that means another water treatment plant somewhere down the line?
no, that would be all part of this project. Now, water treatment plant in the sense of drinking water, fresh water.
Isn't that what this is?
That's correct. I wanted to make sure because water gets complicated, right? You're talking about wastewater and
This whole thing is complicated.
well, James has it. You should sit closer to him. Yeah. I don't know. You got anything to add? Yeah.
So the thing building in 2027, you can add more wells onto that.
It would be a whole separate well.
Yeah, it's another water source, but you could feed it into the same treatment plant and you're okay.
We learned a lot about, I learned a lot about water. We had a very in-depth, I will credit Lauren's team. He has a field of water experts. I believe they came from Macomb. And we all learned a lot about water. Water at different levels can't just be all put together, believe it or not. It does strange things in the system.
I understand that part. I mean, I get that.
So this,
What I'm saying is the well we're drilling now, or that we're testing, that's the water treatment center we're building for that.
correct.
So if
They
we
would-
drill another well, we need another treatment.
No, well, not necessarily.
Depends on if the, what?
Then that water could be all the same consistency or.
Regardless of where we drill, it'll be the same well we're tapping, or the same water aquifer we're tapping?
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's the fan is what they call surface water. So it has different water chemistry than the water down limestone or the other rock formation.
Okay.
If I could add a little bit more context to why we project, and it's often a common question. I know it's been answered a few times as well. The reason why most of the communities want to project beyond 2026 is that, as you said, it could be $5 million. That would be great. But as you know, it could also be $15 million. And none of us want to do that. Hence, we were discussing the criticality of that particular expansion project. Now, the thing is, the reason why we put all of our best estimates into our capital planning is so that we prevent that rate shock, because if this wasn't put in and we just waited, let's say, for the next year to happen, and we see that, oh, now we have a big project and we didn't increase our rates sufficiently, then we may have to go for much larger increases. And to prevent that, and I think Brandon mentioned this earlier perfectly, and he said that we just want to have consistent rates so that it doesn't really cause a rate shock to any of our customers. And they're predicting somewhere, at least a ballpark number in terms of what their costs are going to increase by.
But Ari, this only takes us out 3 years, because by 2028, it starts to go back down below the red.
Yeah, this is the status quo. So if I went to the proposed model in terms of what we're trying to do, because if we didn't take any action, we just went with 4%, with our estimates in there, we'll go below the red. But if we do take some action with some rate increases that we have projected, you can see that we're able to stay above when you go to 29 and 2030 and
Is
beyond.
the option to stay above or right at, or is there a buffer in there we're looking at?
So right now, the red line is our operating threshold, and the idea is to stay above it at all times because it's for unexpected operating expenses day to day. And the dotted black line that you see is what the buffer is, where if we can reach to that point, that's ideal, which is our cash position target. But we also want to make sure that we stay above the red dot line. And if I could have my annotator, it would be something like this, where we can go above this and stay somewhere around that. Because in some years, you'll see that we're building up a surplus for a big capital expenditure down the line. So yeah, stay above the red dot line is best practice.
Okay.
In terms of official, like the slides that I have, that was the last slide that I'd shown for electric when I go all the way to the end. And is there any other questions that we have that I can help resolve for any of the departments?
No.
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
Mad.
Perfect. So with that, I just wanted to ask Brandon, because I can't see anyone, but I would say that, is it something that we're going to be discussing in our next meeting when we bring up wastewater, or are we planning to make a decision today? What's the idea?
Yeah, so when we end the call, the Zoom meeting with you here, Ari, we're going to talk about our refuse proposal. And then tonight, we're going to be looking for direction from the council on electric and water and the refuse contract. And if we can get some direction on that, we can take action at our next meeting. We'll need to do sanitary at the next meeting. So, you know, aren't going to be finalized. I think at this point, the goal would be to have something finalized to pass with ordinance changes by the first meeting of October.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, then I would say thank you so much for inviting me here today. Really appreciate the discussion. I learned a lot myself as well, and I'll see everyone in a couple of weeks.
We're all waving at you.
Oh.
Thanks, Ari.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Okay. So Jamie wants to take back over. Let's go and look at refuse now. So as the council's aware, we put refuse out for RFP a couple of months ago. Council took that action. We did get 3 RFP submissions for our trash, recycling, and yard waste services. Alderman Roothouse, Alderman Kennett, myself, Chad, and Jamie sat on a group to review the submitted RFPs. We had all 3. We invited them all 3 in to present their proposals to us. I'll let these guys speak to if they'd like, but we're all in consensus that Republic Services, our current vendor, they had the best financial proposal. And we are recommending as a review group to stay with Republic. What you see on your screen right now is under the proposed rates, proposed refuse and recycling section of that. You can actually see their bid prices for your 2026 through 2030. That's the column labeled Republic Billing. We have a 5% marker on those rates to cover the things that you see in the top right-hand part of your screen, which gets you to the rates that are in yellow. So all the things that the council has voted to continue and people enjoy in Geneseo with e-waste and all of the disposal site options that we have and all of that, we add that 5% to keep our refuse fund healthy. So what we'd be looking at in 2026 is starting with rates of $17.29 in 26 down through 2023 by the year 2030. This is a $1.34 increase from where our rates sit now in 2025. The other benefits of staying with Republic, the other notes you can see down at the bottom, I listed out. We'll keep our basically our current service intact. We'll get to keep our green toters. We'll still have the free curbside large item pickups for residents. One of the big changes that we discussed with, and some council members were pretty passionate about, that they put in the bid for us was to extend yard waste services into mid-December. So we'll see that happen curbside. So if you're have a yard waste subscription, or if you just want to put out the craft bags with the $1.50 stickers, you'll be able to do that past November, which is what's going on currently next year when we start this, renew this service through mid-December. Craft bag stickers stay $1.50, no price increases there throughout the life of the 5-year contract. Those are kind of the highlights. I don't know if Keith and James had anything interesting.
Yeah, Brandon summed it up well. There were 3 good presentations, but at the end of the day, Republic was clearly offered advantages and what have you. And also, at least from my standpoint, they are, if we run into unexpected situations or have a derecho come through or what have you, that they have the equipment, they have the manpower, they have kind of the resources in this area to service us, whereas it seemed the other ones would be a little more stretched if there was kind of some special need or that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know if James has anything to add.
I don't really have much to add other than since I've lived here in the city, I've actually been really happy with their service. We've forgot a trash can, and other things, they've always come back. They've never complained or said anything. Even when we've owned up and said, I just forgot to take it out, they come right by. So the fact that they also came in with the lowest bid, happy with the service. So that's all I got to add.
Yeah, and maybe one thing to add too, and this would go to staff, but Republic did mention though too, we have a good working relationship with them, be it with Chad or Brandon or what have you. And that positive relationship, I think, was reflected in their bid, quite honestly. So it's a shout out to them to have fostered that positive relationship.
So if any costs get incurred, didn't we run into them one year or something where gas prices escalated, so they had to increase the rates? But they didn't want to honor the contract or something. Am I misgiving that?
I'm not aware of that. Are you guys aware of that in the past, maybe?
Didn't they come up some point? Because they came to a meeting.
He did mention diesel prices one year skyrocketed, and he did mention that if something like that happened, it would basically, they wouldn't make any money. They'd be losing money on service if that ever happened again. I forgot what year he said it was, but
Yeah, I remember
literally-
he came to the meeting and
they
said something to us.
Yeah, they like diesel prices for a period were twice what they are now.
I do remember that, Craig, and I think they were asking us to maybe, and we kind of said, well, no, we have a contract, so you're.
Well, that's what I'm
you can
asking,
honor it.
more Margaret than anybody else. If they sign a 5-year contract, do they have to honor it? Or can they at some point have to stop and say, look, we incurred more expenses than we're supposed to. What's the city's side?
Yeah, so absent some agreement or provision in that agreement that provides for that, they are stuck.
And to build on what Margaret's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all three of the proposals, there was actually a exception that if fuel prices rose to a certain level or above, then there was a mechanism that would kick in to allow for a renegotiation or something. to that
They all
effect.
have clauses to cover an extreme circumstances.
Correct.
Yeah. And it's, tonight, if the council moves this forward, you're moving this forward for us to work with Ansel Glink and Republic on a new contract. You'll get to see this contract, so you're not voting it through tonight. But
I mean, what does it consider a spike?
oh boy, I think over $6, they have outs to come back and renegotiate fuel surge pricing or something, six something a gallon diesel fuel.
How much is it now? I don't know what diesel is.
$3.99,
Okay. All right. So it's quite a
Yeah,
bit.
It's pretty extreme.
Okay.
So that's the refuse discussion.
Motion directs staff.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about the motion first. I mean, so we have it pretty clear in here that, we'd like you to direct us to bring back the Republic contract for the council to vote on. If the council is comfortable with what you saw in electric and water rate presentations tonight, you can direct us to come back with those ordinance and rate changes to the next meeting, and we can have those ready to go.
Motion directs staff to bring a new 5-year contract with the public services for years 2026 through 2030 back to the council for approval and to be determined regarding water and electric rates.
Second.
Well,
so
that motion?
We didn't talk about sanitary.
No, I understand that. That motion would mean that you want to talk about water, sanitary, and electric again.
Oh, sorry.
So
Motion directs staff to bring the new 5-year contract with Republic Services for years 2026 through 2030 back to the council for approval and to be determined regarding sanitary.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Arnold, second by Kenneth with a nod from James. We're really rolling here. Roll call.
He's still stuck on the other one.
Rothschild,
Yes.
Kennett,
Yes.
Swanson,
Yes.
Barnhart.
Yes.
Roothouse.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Arnold.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Item 13.2 under administration with the presentation of the 2024 crime report by Deputy Chief Gene Carson.
I've been putting on a time limit.
Yeah, he promises to be efficient tonight.
3 minutes. I like that. Anyway, so what happens is every year the FBI puts out what's called a uniform crime report. So this year I started looking at it in depth. The reason being is with the new NIBRS, which is National Incident Based Reporting System, everything's the same. It's apples to apples. So every police department's reporting the same way. So what I did is I put this together to help us understand what is going on in our community as well as around us. I'm sorry. Wait on Garrett. There you go. All right. Next page, Garrett, please.
You want to just give Gene the mouse? Why don't we do that? Yeah.
Okay. All right, anyway, sorry. Anyway, so what we did is this is per 1,000 residents, so it's apples to apples. So it's not like Chicago has, X number of million and we have 6,500. So nationally, the violent crime rate's down 6.6% according to the reports. The property crimes are down 11.2%. A lot more stats. Again, I know you guys are tired of stats after the last one. So we'll go pretty quickly. So the crime comparison per 1,000, Geneseo versus comparable Illinois. So what I did was I said, hey, give me everything between 6,500 and 7,000 residents to give us an idea of where we stand. These are the numbers. It's going to be a whole lot easier to understand by looking at the next slide, which is, this is your graph. So if you see what Geneseo is at in the red, that's your violent crime. It's 0.9% per 1,000. That's not bad. Our thefts or our property crimes are what, 8.53. It's kind of hard to see up there. And how we compare to other cities our size. Litchfield has a problem. We can all see that right now. What's that? Elbert's doing good. Elbert is up by Chicago, the other side of, a little ways away from there. So this is our property versus crime totals. Again, we get the number of crimes. Again, if you look at that, our property crimes are the highest compared to our violent crime. We have very little violent crime, but there is a theft issue, and obviously a lot of that's with the commercial we have around there. I'm gonna go through this pretty quick. So your violent crime rate again, 9.2%. The only one lower than us is Elburn. I don't even know where that's at. So we'll look at that. Robinson here is 3% or 3 violent crimes per 1,000. Here's your property crimes. We get about 8.59 per 1,000. Litchfield, I was talking to another city administrator and they said, where's Litchfield? It's down south. But they have a theft problem, obviously. And you go in here again, more statistics. I will say up there, notable differences, no motor vehicle thefts were reported. Well, last year, we had 2 this year, unfortunately, in one incident. But anyway, last year, when you see the Quad Cities, they were having multiple every day. So we're really good, and I believe that has a lot to do with our officers being out there, being seen, and being on patrol. So now what I did was I went to the Quad Cities. Let's see how we compare to the cities around us. And and this is again, it's apples to apples, so it's per 1,000. So 8.5 per 1,000 in Geneseo for thefts, whereas Silvis is 36.24. So if you look at this, it really opens your eyes to what's going on around us and what we're doing and what we've all known as a safe community, but this helps, solidify that. And again, your red is your violent crime. So this is all online if you want to look at it. This is violent crime in the Quad Cities per 1,000. Rock Island, go Rocks. It's a little bit higher. And then your property crime rates again. So the line in the middle, if you go to look at this, this is the state average. Now, being me, let's compare it to U.S. cities, all U.S. cities. Where do we fall? So I pulled these all up, and if you look at this, it's the state and the cities. And again, I'll throw it into a database for you. So if you look at U.S. cities, comparable size, that's where we fall. I think it's kind of easy to try to do the graphs so it's easier to understand. And again, we're operating in a low crime environment. The majority of incidents tied to theft-related crimes. And compared to other similar sized cities, Geneseo is safer both in violent and property crimes and all others that we're comparing them to.
Do you think that's because we're on Interstate 80?
I think part of our thefts are Interstate 80 for sure, and that's why we've invested in the flock cameras. I'll say the reason I believe they're low is not just because we're out there on patrol, but I will tell you we are pretty good at doing investigations, catching people, and they know it. They don't come out here because we're going to catch you. Anyway, Quad Cities area shows significant higher crime rates. Silver Moline particularly high in the property crimes, the thefts and stuff like that. And it reinforces our position as one of the safest communities in the region. If you get into here, we're a low crime environment. Larceny and theft is the most common property crime here. Violent crime is low. And our strategic policing focuses on theft prevention, community engagement, and proactive interventions with domestic and interpersonal conflicts. So the theft prevention, again, is being visible, going out there, our flock cameras doing our investigation. Community engagement is being out there, talking to people, let them know. So we have, witnesses when it's not like a lot of times in Rock Island, nobody saw anything, even though they were standing in the same room. And the proactive interventions on domestic and interpersonal conflicts, that's your impact program. That's what we're doing. We're doing all of this. We just keep doing this, and hopefully we can keep our crime rate low. So I'm not going to go through all this. These are theft prevention strategies to work with the community. Keep pushing, strengthen your security, hide your valuables, security tools, boost your surveillance, lock your stuff up. And then this is how we do our impact program. How can we do more? And we're going to go through that. Jamie and Amber and Ben and I will go through that. And again, some more community strategies. What other outreach programs can we do? What other dialogue can we do? What can we do more? Again, we got the lowest ones that I've seen in the area, in the region. But what we can do more? It's too high if we have one, in my opinion. So we continue to take proactive steps to keep the community safe. Also committed to maintaining a strong, visible presence. So beyond, we're focused on problem solving in a partnership with the community, working with the schools, the businesses, and the community groups. And our efforts, our broader philosophy, crime prevention, is not just about responding after something happens, but being creative about how we respond before, how we get involved with everybody. And we'll go back to you. Sorry. Any questions? I mean, again, I can only answer what's in the crime report. It's put out by the FBI every year. This is the first year with the NIBRS that's in there. So it's apples to apples. So we know that another city didn't have a burglary and say, let's call it a theft, and reduce their crime rate. Nobody can. It's apples to apples now.
So we're not going to see McGruff the crime dog around anytime soon. Is that what you're saying?
That suit was kind of
all right. That's
sweated in.
what I'm hearing.
Did you find that hate crime increase since you left?
I will tell you. So surprise, surprise. I kept all the statistics on the violent crime in Rock Island. Okay, and I can tell you that the amount of shootings in Rock Island surpassed that of Davenport. It's third size. I will tell you they've done a lot, and I will give it to Chief McLeod down there now. He's really pushing some stuff, but so is Davenport. They've got new initiatives they're working on. I think it's going to get better. I really do. I think that there's a lot more things we can do. I'll go back to flock cameras. That's just one of the things. I mean, you can't get away. They know what cars are in the area. If you go into the city of Rock Island, there's cameras everywhere. So it's a good benefit for that, especially because their biggest problem is violent crime.
It stood out that you had 0 car thefts and 0 arsons.
Yeah,
that seems significant.
24.
Even for a town this size, 0 is a pretty, especially in the last few years, there was just like a ton of car thefts. And they were a lot of joyride, like they would just drive them around for a day and then ditch them.
Yeah.
So you guys are doing a good job on prevention if there's 0
So
happening here.
part of that is I'll give it to Seth and Tyler on night shift. If you leave your garage open, they're knocking on your door at 2 in the morning. Close your garage door, because that's a lot of the times where people leave their keys in their cars in their garage, but if you close your garage door, you've locked them.
Yeah.
So that's a big, big plus for helping us keep our car thefts low.
Nice.
Yeah, I just say, I know, like last week I went out to work one morning and oops, I left the garage door open to the wife's side all night long.
Tyler was probably off.
Okay.
Thanks, Gene.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay, moving on. Item 13.3 under administration would be the Olivia Drive CUD development. Significant change to the approved CUD layout.
Okay, so this item went to the Plan Commission on August 19th. They moved this forward to City Council for approval. basically what this is it's considered a significant change in the condominium use district because they are looking for flexibility. They've changed their plot plan to allow for duplex structures. The original plan had all triplex structures. This is the Affinity Group development on the north side of Olivia Drive. Want the flexibility to be able to construct those duplexes mixed in to the development. There's a demand for them, duplexes with basements, so they may sell some of those on the west-hand side of that roadway. And we just want to make everybody aware of that change because it is significant to the original plan that was presented.
Motion to approve the new plat layout for the Olivia Drive condominium use district project by Affinity Growth Community Developers, giving the developers flexibility to construct both triplex and duplex structures within the approved CUD development.
Second.
Motion by Arnold, second by Rothschild. Roll call.
Arnold,
Yeah, yes.
James,
Yes.
Roothouse. Barnhart,
Yes.
Swanson,
Yes.
Kennett,
Yes.
Rothschild.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Item number 14 would be the payment of city and utility bills.
Motion to approve the bills, city bills as presented.
Motion by Arnold,
Second.
second by Swanson. Roll call.
Rothschild,
Yes.
Kennett,
Yes.
Swanson,
Yes.
Barnhart,
Yes.
Roothouse.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Arnold.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Item number 15 would be public comment related to all other items. City ordinance allows members of the public to speak and give input up to 3 minutes. During public comment, there can be no debate or action by the city council at this time. Ann? No? Pastor Steve? All right.
Did we decide to? Did we decide to join that cell marketing whole thing? I was thinking about when Zach said we've had 10,000 people here, and I was like, well, we could go look at the cell data and see exactly how many people were here.
So yeah, we're talking about Placer AI. We do not have that. It's very expensive for a municipality to join it themselves. I know one thing that we asked Jim Kelly, the county's economic development director, to do is to talk about it. And they've had some internal conversations if it may be something that the county and the municipalities in the county would be interested in getting on board for, to make it an affordable thing for everybody to use. We do have some connections at the Quad Cities Chamber and some other groups that are willing to go in and pull snapshots like on Saturday for us. We'll probably be able to get the number if we ask nicely from them, but we don't have full access to anything right now.
And actually, where I was thinking about that is with Chief's thing, because I think that would allow us also, if we said a crime happened here at 2 a.m, to potentially be able to look at maybe who was there with the appropriate subpoena, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's why I thought of it.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, I was.
Sorry, I rescind.
Real quick, I wanted to go back to what Pastor Steve talked about earlier in the meeting about the population in Geneseo. Yes, it's not noticeable, but after what Alderman Roothouse said about children per house, if you look at the schools enrollments, they're down significant. That's where it's noticeable. Like last year, the high school was in the 840s. This year it's in the 790s. So there's a significant drop there, and that's where it's noticeable at.
So tell your congregation to have kids. That's what our pastor, Chris, he says either bring one or make one.
All right, without any other public comment. Next on the agenda would be adjournment.
Motion, second.
Motion by Rothschild, second by Arnold. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.
Waiting for you.